All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Fifer. This is Conversations on Retail. Joining us today is Scott Crossett, President and CEO of Cameron Smith and Associates, truly the gold standard in executive search in the CPG industry. Scott, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Matt. Good to see you too. And I know you've been a longtime friend of CSA, and it's great to get the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, likewise. And, it's funny. I have said this to Rick West and to Andy Murray and Bill Waitsman, several others. When I'm talking with other people and your name comes up, like, oh, yeah, Scott's a friend. But I say that because you've been so friendly to me over the years. But the reality is, I, like so many others, I sense don't really know anything about you. Here's what I know. I know that you were a standout baseball player at the University of Arkansas. I know that you started your career as a stockbroker at Morgan Stanley. And I know that you joined Cameron Smith and Associates at about the same time that I was getting to know Cameron when we were starting 8th and Walton back in 2007. But I know little else. So if you would just start just giving a brief introduction of what Cameron Smith and Associates is today, and then allow us to get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? How did you end up at the University of Arkansas playing baseball? What were some of your early interests?
Well, yeah. So I guess the way I got to University of Arkansas playing baseball is I wasn't good enough to play basketball, which was my first true love. But yeah, Coach DeBryan found me in Batesville, Arkansas. Dan Wright, who's a friend and ended up playing Major League Baseball, was also a teammate of mine. And I think through Dan, they found me and ended up at the U of A. Went up there to pitch and to hit. Dislocated my shoulder before I got there. Ended up becoming an outfielder only, not pitching. Played for 4 years, enjoyed it, but continuous arm troubles. I knew I wasn't going to make it to the big leagues. Hung it up and did what I really wanted to do all through college, was become a stockbroker. I loved it. I loved companies. I loved doing the research, trying to pick stocks. I had no money, so I wasn't very experienced with it, but I really enjoyed finance. So I was fortunate enough to join on with Morgan Stanley, worked with Morgan Stanley and Raymond James for about 6 years. Still love it, still follow it. During those times, I learned a lot of skills, cold calling skills, sales skills, a lot of people skills that I didn't have. But I also saw the writing on the wall that as a 23, 24, 25, whatever, up to 27-year-old person, I didn't know anyone with money. And that's kind of what it took. I would probably be a lot better as a stockbroker now than back then. But during my time at Raymond James, I also put together an investment group that founded Eddie Haskell's Patio and Grill. I don't know if you remember that or not, Matt.
I do.
So through that, I got to meet Cameron Smith. He would come down for lunch, and he was on our advisory board and would give us recommendations on food or music or just different things, because our target audience was the young supplier community that was up here. There wasn't a whole lot of nightlife and things at the time. So got to know him. I was looking to make a career change, but I had no interest, no knowledge of CSA. I just knew Cameron. They were in the process of opening the World Trade Center in the same buildings where the Raymond James office and Eddie Haskell's was at the time. And so I knew Cameron was on the board of directors for the World Trade Center. And I went to meet with him to discuss if there were opportunities there that I could join the World Trade Center. So I went up. That was my intention. He's just nice enough to meet with me. So come in this actual office I'm in right now, sit down with him, and he says, well, what are you thinking? What are you here for? And I told him my thoughts, and he kind of looked at me and shook his head and paused. He said, well, I'd like to own the Chicago Bears too, but it's not going to happen. And I was like, okay, well, that was a quick, hey, you're not qualified, And but we had a friendly relationship where I knew how he meant it, and so I laughed, and he said, well, what else are you thinking about? And I didn't come prepared. That was a lesson learned. But I said, I don't know. And he said, well, come back and think through some stuff. In the meantime, I went back, looked into Cameron Smith and Associates, and talked to him more about joining CSA. And at the time, Walmart was in the process of moving or right around that time, they were moving their apparel headquarters to New York. And so there was a lot of business opportunity there. We were doing some out-of-state stuff. We had an office in Minneapolis doing stuff for Target supplier teams. But I joined, and he gave me large assignments within the apparel industry for these suppliers that were now needing to staff Walmart knowledgeable employees in New York City. So I did that and had some good success with it. And then, as you know, 3 or 4 years later, they changed their mind, and then about half of them moved back. About half of them
Yeah.
stayed. So there's not nearly as many apparel suppliers here as there were probably 15, 16 years ago during that time period. But that was kind of how I got into CSA and my story there.
Yeah. Well, so we've got some folks that are joining us live, and forgive me in my hurry to get things started. I forgot to mention something really important. This is intended to be a conversation, not a presentation, and so we would love for the folks who are joining live to participate. And you can do that simply by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and submitting your questions, your comments. In writing. The other thing is, I would love to spend a little bit of time. We don't have tons of time with Scott, but just sort of celebrating the life and legacy of Cameron Smith. And so, if anyone has anything that they would like to offer in the way of paying tribute to Cameron, that'd be a great opportunity to do that as well. So, tell us a little bit about what Cameron's story is so exciting. I mean, he came here, was in Fort Smith, and started spending time in Northwest Arkansas. Saw this great opportunity very, very early on. There were a handful of teams here, but it was really Cameron that caught the vision early and recognized the need for what would become Cameron Smith and Associates. Tell us a little bit about that story. And again, what does the company do today? What's your sweet spot today?
Absolutely, and to your point on the questions, I look forward to answering any questions, and I'm here as long as you need. But in regards to market talent, all that type of stuff. But as far as who Cameron Smith and Associates is today, how we got here, Cameron was down in Fort Smith, and he was a sales recruiter. He had moved down there, he got married, and he was from California, and moved down here. So he was doing sales recruiting, just general manufacturing sales. And he got in with Huffy Bicycle, who was looking to find somebody for their Walmart team, and they were wanting to move somebody down here in Bentonville to manage their Walmart business. And that was really early on. There was less than 50 Walmart supplier teams here.
Yeah.
Cameron got just a vision that it was something that was going to build, and so him and Monica Smith moved to Bentonville, opened up an office on the square 2 doors down from the Walton 5 and Dime now, the museum, and began the business and ran it out of that business, I think, for about 10 or 12 years before moving to our office here in Pinnacle now in Rogers. But when he started, there was 50 supplier teams. Now there's 1,500. Our company's been here through it all, and so we've obviously, I think our reputation as being the leading recruitment firm to Walmart supplier teams, but also 15 years ago, he had the foresight to expand, and we do the same thing at hubs across the country for Kroger supplier teams, Target supplier teams, HEB, Publix. We do a lot of Southeast regional sales and analytics roles. We do some headquarter positions as well. Anything from sales, account management, sales, finance, marketing, category management, analytics, replenishment, you name it. Anything to do with the product on the shelf at a mass retailer, we do that. And then have since, we've got a recruiter who's fantastic that has built a little bit of a construction business for us and some alternative things. And then we've got 2 colleagues that do some retail recruiting and international recruiting and have had some great success. So it's, we've kind of expanded in some other things, but the consumer goods industry is where our focus is, and obviously our base is here in Bentonville, Rogers.
Yeah. Well, Cameron has such an entrepreneurial spirit, and I alluded to this, at the very beginning. But when we started 8th and Walton back in 2007, Cameron was an early investor and really shared a vision, because that was such a complementary offering. Basic training for suppliers once you sort of identified the talent and recruited them to teams, helping them develop those skills. But he was involved in so many other things. You've been along for 16 years now. How has the business changed the most since you've been a part of the team?
We continue to grow. We've got 25 or 26 recruiters now. I think when I joined, we had 12. And but we've maintained the people we have really well. I think the average person here has been here over 10 years. We've got several. Jim McCula and Denise Natishin have both been here close to 20. Jim, I think, is 23 or 24 years. So we've got a lot of tenure. As far as how the company's changed. I mean, the industry's changed. We're always evolving.
Yeah.
We always have to be improving. We always have to put forward a better quality of work than we did last week or last month or last year. And so
Yeah.
it's always been a focus of us. We've got to stay technologically savvy. We're always entertaining new softwares or systems or ways to find people quicker or to do a better job. And so constant evaluation, and then it's always very competitive. There's companies coming in from all over the country to recruit and compete and has relationships in other places. So, we've got to keep our stronghold here, but we also are in other markets and being very competitive in other markets. And that's a focus as well that we have to do to continue to grow. And we've implemented some new programs. We've gotten into retained search pretty big in the last 5 years. So we still do our contingency search, but we have a higher quality offering, I guess you'd say, where we it's a different relationship that you have with the customers and the different commitment and a different detail. And, where they're looking for the very best of the very best. And we provide a 1-year candidate replacement with that. And a lot of different features come with the retained service. And it's because we've got so many people, we're capable of doing both retained and contingency search. And that's been huge for us to elevate our business and the level of relationships that we're having.
Yeah. Well, everyone knows that just been a tremendous acceleration of change, particularly in the last 3 years, in so many different areas of retail. You've got retailer consolidation. You've got an acceleration of online sales and shoppers moving back into the stores and some of the experiential coming back. How have the teams that you're supporting with respect to drawing and attracting the top talent, how are their needs changing? How have they changed in the last 3 years? And maybe predict the future a little bit for us about some of the future trends.
Sure. I mean, you know the buzzwords too, but omni-channel, and it's e-commerce. And I think that the stuff was put out there a little sooner than it actually happened. I think companies are now really, truly hiring people and supporting their businesses with e-commerce people versus people at the headquarters that are kind of dabbling in it. And it's more than just setting up items and pictures. It's a lot more technical, and it's going to evolve that direction. And it's the data programs that are coming around e-commerce and supporting it are so much more intricate than they've been in the past. A lot of times I think there was a little bit of a segregation and it was hard to interpret, but I think with Luminate and some of the other tools, I believe that the information is going to be a lot easier for retailers to tell where the shoppers are coming from and what's impactful. So I think just a huge emphasis on insights and being able to tell the stories and use the data, which is not too different from how it's always been. It's just it's going to continue to get more advanced and more specific and more detailed, and you have to continue to make larger and larger investments to keep up. Is what I think we're seeing, and so there's more coding going on with teams. There's a lot of third party companies that are doing some great work and data analytics work. In Bentonville specifically, there's a whole lot more brokers now. Used to, it was broker was kind of they saw a third party middleman as an added expense, while Target had always supported a broker situation and felt the little guy could use some support and do better work if they were supported through the broker system. And now, instead of hiding behind fake business cards, that I think Walmart truly accepts the idea that the smaller suppliers need this to be competitive. So there's a huge influx of brokers, and I think they're doing well and they're having some success. So we've done a lot of work with broker teams in the last 12 months, and I expect it to continue to grow. But it's a lot of tech savvy people are always needed, and it seems to be a trend.
Yeah. Several folks have joined since we've started, so I'll just remind the whole group, if anyone has any questions for Scott or would like to offer insight or even pay tribute to the late, great Cameron Smith, click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit any of that in writing. Speaking to a couple of trends, I've seen things, and I know you'll tell me if you see it completely wrong, but a couple of things that I've seen that I'd love for you to comment on. One is there seems to have been, over the last 10 years, and especially the last 5 years, sort of this transition away from the development of generalists and now it's really more about people creating real specialization in terms of career development. I think it was that way at Walmart. It was that way in a lot of supplier teams where you come in at one level and they sort of move you around the organization and you have sort of a general view of the entire operation. I think there seems to be more of a tendency of people creating a lot more specialization. The other thing that I'm seeing that I think is really interesting is you're starting to see, especially within the broker community, this concentration of talent in Northwest Arkansas, but it's being deployed against lots of other retailers. And it used to be sort of a taboo thing. If you were in Northwest Arkansas, you were focused on Walmart. But now I think a lot of companies are recognizing that, listen, we've got our very best talent in Northwest Arkansas looking after our most important customer. Why not put them also against the Amazon and Costco and Kroger and Target business? Are you comment on both of those if you would?
The most recent that I remember, you mentioned the brokers and working multiple retailers. I think they probably need to be careful. I think that while that may happen, I do think that that's going to be pretty sensitive. I do think that's where they're going to get blowback. I do think they're going to have to focus with Walmart or Target or Kroger and not go in. And that's how it was originally. And as you know, the pendulum swings, and then they got specialized, and it was only one account. But these retail teams for the bigger companies, they absolutely, there's competition amongst their teams. The Kroger team competes with the Target team, and their bonuses, and I would, and right now product, it's who gets the product, because there's limited supply in a lot of different items, and so they're fighting for it. While that may happen, and that's probably a downside to broker stuff, I think that would be something that I would caution. It may be trending that direction, but I definitely see, I would see a concern if I were someone and the company was representing my product as well as representing a competitor's product. That's something you got to be careful with also.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the first point was, what was the first point?
The development of specialization in your career as opposed to the generalist route.
And I think big companies have always put these career paths together, saying, hey, 18 months you're here, another 18 months you're there. Maybe you move different places, or you go from category management to sales to finance, and they prep you and get you on different accounts, and they try to grow you and move people around to make space. The mid-sized and small companies are a little bit more, get in, do a great job. We're going to compensate you for it. We want you to be an expert. We can't promise you a promotion. If somebody leaves and you're doing good, we'll move you up. Or if we gain business, we'll move you up, or we'll give you opportunities. But at the same time, they have trade-offs. Like, you may not have to relocate through our headquarters to promote. So there's pluses and minuses to both the big, small, and companies, and how they operate and how they're structured.
There was a great article in the New York Times a couple of days ago talking about, the looming commercial real estate market crash in New York and some of these other cities. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about folks returning back to the office. Are you seeing a reluctance of folks going back to work as we once knew it, or do you think that this working from home or this hybrid approach is something we're going to all have to contend with for a long period of time?
Yeah, and I think the Northeast is one area that's probably a little slower to go back, actually, because they have the 1.5 hour commute both ways, 3 hours, and I saw 60% of the commercial real estate is taken right now in New York, which it's usually historically 85 or 90, I think, or more. So they've not gone back completely in New York. However, in most markets, and in New York also, especially the consumer goods industry, they are going back. Any team, with exception, 80-20 rule, any team that has 5 people or more in their office, it's almost a guarantee that they're going into the office at least 3 days a week, if not 4 days or 5 days. I think that's the trend. It's going to continue to get back to normal. I don't think it has to go all the way back. I talked to somebody really, really sharp last week, and he made an analogy that said, it wasn't a perfect world when we were in the office 5 days a week, and it's not a perfect world when you're at home 5 days a week, and somewhere in the middle is probably right. And 3 days a week may not be a perfect world, nor 4 days a week, but nothing's ever perfect. So I thought that was pretty good. But there's just too much need for collaboration. There's too much need for training. There's too much need for knowing if your employee's really working, if they aren't answering emails, are they working hard, are they playing golf? And there's some challenges with accountability sometimes, I think. And that's just, the more people you have to manage, the bigger teams, the more that's asked of you, the more it's necessary, I think, to be in the office. And so whether I want it or not. I mean, we're very remote. We come in as we please. We're in a lot, and we're kind of COVID's done and operate as normal, and I enjoy that. However, that it's absolutely what these teams are doing, and they got different divisions in finance and marketing and sales, and they just need to talk and see each other and see what they're working and how they work and interact more, and so it's going in that direction.
Yeah. There's got to be areas where in terms of supply and demand, with respect to talent, there's got to be areas where you feel like you've got excess demand I'm sorry, excess supply, and filling positions with top talent is a lot less difficult than other areas where maybe there's not as many people in the pool that have those skills. What are some of those skills right now that where you might see a bit of a shortage as you're trying to fill positions now and in the future? You mentioned analytics and storytelling, which has been a trend for quite some time. But where are you feeling pressure now? And I ask that question for folks listening, thinking in terms of their own career development. What are some of the skills that people need to be developing now in anticipation of sort of the demands of the future? And where are you feeling that supply pressure today?
Right now, so I think that wage inflation has slowed. I think that at least in our industry, I think that companies that hiring is taking longer. The average time to hire is taking a little bit longer. I think that's partly companies have said, "Hey, this is the most we're going to pay, and candidates can take it, or we'll take somebody lesser." And it's kind of starting to get to be a little bit more of a pushback on some of the money that's being asked. So I think we're coming to a peak within that. Within the skills, though, that need to move, I would say it depends on the level of your job. If you're a manager, a senior level VP, I mean, you need really strong communication skills and leadership skills. And they talk about emotional intelligence and a lot of the soft skills. And I think you need that at every stage. But earlier in your career to advance, it's a little bit more technical skills. It's a little bit less client facing sometimes. So if it's Tableau or SQL or Madrid 2.0, Luminate, 8451 at Kroger, any of the syndicated data skill sets, it's just you can't be too technical right now. Now you need to couple that and learn the communication skills, and you need to have ambition, but also patience. Meaning you want to do well and thrive and grow, but you can't grow so fast that you say, "Hey, I got to get promoted." I mean, it's we want you to do well in the job you're at, and in time you'll get promoted. So it's the ability to lead different types of people, because there's 3 or 4 different generations of people in offices now, and they
Yeah.
all have a different tendency of how they operate and how they're pushed and how they're not pushed, and motivations and what drives them. So just being self-aware of the various types of personalities and demographics that are in the communities, I think is an important skill also.
Yeah. I was so fortunate to know Cameron, to partner with Cameron, to have him as a mentor early in my entrepreneurial career. And I think a lot of folks would see him as this, very successful, business person, put together a great company. He was someone who was, very engaged in the community. But I think what I think a lot of people might not know about Cameron was how much he loved his family, which is probably a given, but how much he loved his team. And I think it went both ways. But Cameron was so proud, not just of the company that he created, but the folks that made up that team. You all always come across as just this really, really tight knit group of purpose driven people. Talk a little bit about Cameron's leadership. Talk a little bit about his legacy, and talk about sort of what's ahead now for CSA.
And thank you for that opportunity. Cameron he's the most fantastic human you'll ever have met. The most charismatic, loved people. He loved his team and family, like you said. I mean, we were his family.
Yeah.
Absolutely treated like family. He cared for us if we were struggling or anything. We were up and down. He would lose sleep over our personal situations as much or more than himself, and totally just love Monica. Monica, by the way, Monica Smith is just our rock here too, and she's been so fantastic in supporting us, and she's got the same mission to carry on Cameron's legacy. here and do what he wanted. And I mean, it was a really rough couple months post, Cameron to transition, and really a couple months prior to that as well. But he showed us how to continue forward. He was working all the way until 2 weeks. He was at the AMP doing his thing and seeing concerts. He was at the Cancer Challenge charity event 2 or 3 weeks prior to passing. And I mean, just fighting through it, and just he hosted a fireworks show, his Shadow Valley fireworks show he always does every year with 5 or 10,000 people, and was there. And the next day is when he had to go to the hospital, and it was it was tough. But I mean, he's a legendary recruiter, just a fantastic person. We were in awe of the number of people who came to us and said little stories of how he helped them, even though they weren't somebody he could really help, or took time to help them with their career in some other industry, or had coffee. It was unbelievable and motivating, and really helped us get back together and just say, hey, he put together an unselfish team. And after we got past it, we recognized that what he would want us to do is, hey, collect ourselves and use this as motivation to grow ourselves. And that's what Monica wanted, and that's what we want. And so we collected and rallied around it. But yeah, I mean, Cameron, his charitable, it was every year. It was 25 to 30 charities he would participate and donate to. I think he sat on 8 different boards at one time, and can't tell you how many he turned down. And but just his energy, that's nothing we can replace here. We're doing our best. He was just the light and entertainment of every meeting and every party, and he's just such a people person. He just had that. His whole family too, and Kathy and Tommy and his family. They're from California, and they've got a little bit of showbiz and flair, and just they loved. He would love this type of thing that we're doing right now, or love making speeches at various places. But just you'll never meet a finer person. He always took care of all of us, and like you said, we're still a family, and sticking together through his vision.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Cameron was a showman, and he loved people. He got energy from people, and everything you saw, at least in my experience, it was all genuine. I mean, he didn't have to put on anything for anybody. It was just who he was.
Yeah. So he was a professional softball pitcher back early in his career, and he loved it. And he went around Arkansas and taught fast pitch softball to all the high schools, because they were doing slow pitch and kids were losing out on scholarships. And so he went around to all the high schools and taught fast pitch to these coaches who had not done fast pitch in Arkansas. And for that and other reasons, he was the dugout at the Lady Razorback Stadium, Bogle Park, was named Cameron Smith. It's a bullpen, excuse me, Cameron Smith bullpen. And he went out there during the dedication, walks out onto the mound, and he throws the pitch between his legs, strike, 60 miles an hour to the catcher. I mean, and he did it with a smile on his face. Just that, and that's to your point. I mean, he loved that type of stuff. Most of us walk out there on the mound and we hope we don't bounce it. He goes up and throws it between his legs.
Yeah. Well, this is not false flattery, but Cameron and Monica and the team at CSA deserve so much credit for what Northwest Arkansas is today. Just that early vision, and then the focus to really bring it all together, to go from 50 supplier teams to 1,500 supplier teams, just here with America's top, retail and CPG talent. Congratulations on the success of the organization. Congratulations on sort of this next chapter in the CSA story. And Scott Crossett, President and CEO, Cameron Smith and Associates, thank you so much for making the time to do this. I appreciate it so much. And if anyone is interested in working or getting to know your team a little bit better, what's the very best way to engage?
Just call our hotline. It's our phone number. You'll find it. Cameron Smith and Associates. Call in. Ask to speak with me or any of our talented recruiters. We've got some really senior people. We have different people who specialize in different areas. We've got someone who's really strong with marketing. Some people that are really strong with maybe it's a private equity type companies, or it's various things, and we'll put you in touch with the right person. Or if you're looking for career opportunities, we'll help you with that. And we're getting into talent management, so we've got some prison testing, and which was with a company called Elatus out of New York City. The president used to be the ex-president of Gap Negotiation, Simon Brocklehurst. So we've partnered with some really talented people to get us into talent assessment and talent management. So that's a thing. And if you have any questions on what we think's going on in the economy and where it's going, love to talk. I know we've run over on our time, but I'm very appreciative to get to speak with you, Matt, and love helping and talking to anybody. Love talking about business, the economy, CPG industry. It's what we do here.
Yeah. Scott, thank you so much. Congratulations on your appointment. And let me know if I can do anything to support you and your team as you all continue ahead.
Thank you, Matt. You always do. Really appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.